Finishing up our last segment as I spit crumbs out from my Triscuits I'm eating. I'm Chris.
I'm Mark.
Our final segment of our best of / favorite series. And we're at home here with the Incredible Hokes show. We hope you are too. So that's the reason we eat on camera, fart, belch, and do other things on camera of our show.
Yeah, I hope they heard that first 30 seconds.
Alright. Continuing on. We left off with, we did score, I think, visual effects.
Best visual effects is next.
So, to take us on the home run stretch, best visual effects.
Willis O'Brien, he was the stop motion animator / visual effects guy on King Kong, 1933. That film really just kind of laid the groundwork for future films, that kind of filmmaking, that kind of kind of the high concept, if you will, fantasy and stuff like these things that you could put for example, you could put a man in an ape suit, but it would look kind of off, it'd look cheap or whatever. Something that looked to audiences more visually satisfying. Mm-hmm. And going stop motion with Willis O'Brien and what he was able to achieve, certainly ahead of his time, and the approach that he took, the fundamentals of stop motion is still used. It's just now done with computers, and all the CGI that you see for films for like Avatar and the Hobbit trilogy and Transformers, all that can trace their roots right back to King Kong and Willis O'Brien.
Well, he had character, the scratching, the looking around. Mm-hmm. They didn't just go in there and do the action. They had character. He brought character to them. The little touches that the great special effects artists add to it. It had character. It's one of the things that's present in the original trilogy and a little bit missing in the prequels. It's one of the things that people noted over time, and justifiably noted, hey, that was missing. You miss those little touches that add character to it. Yeah, for the Star Wars.
It's a performance that he was giving. Yeah.
And so the best special effects artists add character to the effect. Mm-hmm. Even with fire, one of the things they talked about when they made Backdraft is they had a characteristic to the different types of fire and stuff. That's a great attention to detail. That adds elements to things. Yeah. My choice for best special effects is The Empire Strikes Back, 1980. And the reason why that one, they took what was done groundbreaking with Star Wars, and they took it to the next level in a short amount of time. And they added elegance to it. And there's a beauty to the special effects and the walkers, for instance. They took the special effects of Star Wars and made something huge out of it. And I think the walkers, the size of them, they totally sold the size and the enormity of these things, and the reach and depth of the vastness of the Empire. So it worked on a storytelling mode. And I think it also paved the way for, I remember in Lord of the Rings, the first time you saw the large trolls, me and you both were like, oh my God, that was awesome. Yeah. Nobody's ever done that before. And I think that that was their way of it's almost like giving permission to effects makers to make something so large and so big, in a realistic, quote unquote realistic environment. So you had these large walkers. The walkers are one of my favorite special effects pieces of all time, the Imperial walkers. So, and plus the elegance of Cloud City. The beauty of it, the beauty of the ending fight scene between Vader and Luke when he's finally forced down to the edge, and Luke, I'm your father. All that stuff is done so well. There's such an elegance to it. So it takes the groundbreakingness of Star Wars, and then it's almost like it polishes it up and cleans it up, and adds it makes it bigger and more elegant. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Empire Strikes Back, especially. Now, CGI and all that stuff, does it blow it away? Yes, of course. CGI, it's almost like it's a good thing and it's a bad thing in a lot of ways, because it's set filmmakers free, but they misuse it. Lord of the Rings is probably the best example ever of a film using CGI, the best, because they filled in the gaps of what they couldn't do. the orcs fighting in the forest versus Viggo Mortensen. That was a guy in a suit, and what they couldn't do, they filled in with CGI.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be done. Jurassic Park, they did what they could with practical, and they filled in the rest with CGI.
Yeah.
And they were at an age now where they just do it all with CGI, and I think that's really missing, and I don't give them points. I know it looks good. I know it looks amazing, but you don't get points from me.
Yeah.
You know, the great ones are doing both, and they're implementing both. And Empire Strikes Back might be the best special effects achievement prior to the CGI movement of the 90s.
Yeah. I would just urge anyone, when it comes to best visual effects, it isn't the point that, oh, you picked something that's an older movie, we can do that better. That misses the whole point. The whole point was...
In the context of its time.
In the context of its time, and also did it move and influence its medium in the world of special effects. Certainly King Kong did, 1933. In Empire Strikes Back, you had really the birth of Industrial Light and Magic, which is ILM for short. Mm-hmm. The most famous special effects house probably in the world, next to Weta Digital.
Well, and as I said, not to beat the point, to me it is the last great pinnacle before the CGI movement started. And I know it started before then, but we'll just say it started in '93 with Jurassic Park, just to sort of put a time on it. So that was the last great one before CGI came in. And that's the reason why that's the reason to me it stands so tall. It's just elegant special effects. All right. Screenplay, original, not adapted from a book or any other source. Fresh from the writer's mind to the paper to the movie.
Best original screenplay. I go with Network from 1976. When I think of original screenplay, you're not talking about maybe this. You're not picking something that's the best film of all time. It's the script. I have a hard time thinking of a script that, frankly, is more meatier for its actors and snappier with the dialogue and inventive and layered and has the multiple characters involved. A script where you have just kind of a one-dimensional kind of a story where you're following one character all the way through is so much easier to write as a scriptwriter, as opposed to a world that's inhabited with many people, and you're having to give context and so forth. And Network is not just a story that is occupied by one individual. It's many people, all with different agendas, and many of those agendas are in conflict. It's and it's funny, it's satirical, and also tragic in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I would, judging just on screenplay like you did, not so much as an end result movie, I guess you might say.
Right.
Because in some ways you can make the argument, well, shouldn't your favorite movie have the best screenplay because it's the framework for the movie? And you could make the argument, I guess. But if you're talking about just like the screenplay in terms of like how it's laid out, the structure, the lines, whatnot, you make a valid point. And, I would say, like, for instance, Aaron Sorkin's Social Network screenplay is one that jumps off to me. Is like, you could tell the screenplay was just awesome.
Oh yeah.
I remember when we first saw that movie, we both were like, "My God, that screenplay is like."
And I considered it for adapted screenplay, by the way.
Oh, it's adapted.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay. So anyway, but that's a movie where it's like, oh, you could tell on the page.
Oh yeah.
How well it was written. My choice for original screenplay would be. And the reason I did this is because he's my favorite writer, film writer, and screenwriter of all time. So I could not pick anybody else. So I just picked my favorite movie from him was Quentin Tarantino, and I went with Kill Bill, which I think he wrote pretty much as one script. So
right.
We'll just call it Kill Bill for Kill Bill. Kill Bill Volume 1 is my top 10. Quentin Tarantino is my favorite screenwriter, period. I've read his scripts. He describes the action, and he tells the story like he's talking to you. So I always enjoyed and emulated that way of writing. He does a great job of bouncing back and forth in the story to keep it interesting. He does the trick of manipulating the audience, manipulating the characters, manipulating everybody to keep everybody in the proper amount of suspense, but yet have the knowledge enough of what's going on to be interested and invest in the characters. I could have easily picked Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction or even Django Unchained and Glorious Bastards. I could have picked any of his movies and been right at home here. I just went with Kill Bill because it's my personal favorite movie of his, so I just went with that one. Kill Bill is a meticulously laid out revenge piece. Volume 1 is specifically on my top 10. That movie is so well structured and thought out, with not a piece out of place, not a moment or a word out of place. It began at the script level and also the editing. But it's just, he's just a master of structure for his movies. So the structure of the screenplay is what lands it here for me.
Especially when you consider he doesn't do linear. It's all non-linear.
Right.
Nothing is just A to Z.
Yes.
It's actually, okay, we might start at M, then back over to B, now back over to Y, and now back into A. He never tells it. But he does it in a way that makes sense and works.
Never loses you. And if he does lose you, it's on purpose, and he brings you right back in at the appropriate time.
Yes.
And you're like, why did he do that? Well, he pays it off. There's always a payoff.
There's always a payoff.
There's never stuffing in there that's just for loosey-goosey reasons.
There is a method to his approach.
He's one of those filmmakers and writers, you just go with it, and he will pay it off. Trust him.
I actually considered Pulp Fiction for that category.
Yeah. Again, Quentin Tarantino, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, he's a great writer.
Adapted screenplay. It means adapted from a book, series, whatever. It's not a totally original
right
writing. What is yours?
Adapted screenplay. What did I put? Because I'm... Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola adapted the novel The Godfather. And that is a great script. It's almost like... I'm being repetitious. The things I said for Network almost apply for Godfather, in that it's a world inhabited by a multitude of characters and having to keep up with every one of them. You've got this mob family to keep up with, and what are their names, and what is their agenda, and okay, now what's going on over here? You've got all that to kind of map out. Richly layered, and then of course you've got a bit of a character arc, and the character of Michael Corleone is at the center of the story, and so it's just brilliant. I think that's my favorite.
And when you pair it with Godfather 2, it just makes the achievement all much more wonderful. So it's almost going to do your Lord of the Rings thing where you put them together. You can almost do that with Godfather 1 and 2. Just put them together, and it's like, well, it's amazingly structured and detailed, and just. There's so many things going on, visually, story structure-wise, but also thematically and emotionally, and what you're not seeing.
Yeah, everything totally is logical where it goes. Yeah,
it's just So my choice for best adapted screenplay would be P.T. Anderson, There Will Be Blood, adapted from the book Upton Sinclair.
Yeah, oil. It's just called oil.
Exclamation point, oil. Actually, I read Cliff Notes of the book, and he only adapted loose parts of it. I think he cuts off like half. Like the book goes on, and he only goes maybe halfway through the book with what he did. He changed it significantly, and in some ways, it's almost hard to even say it's adapted, more like inspired by. Anyway, what I love about the screenplay for that movie is how he took this material and he found such small details and created a whole new themes, and he went a whole new direction with like the most bare bones of input from the other material. I mean, it's how to phrase it. It's like he saw a simple Polaroid picture, but created a whole opera off of something so simple. So he took something so small and created this whole richly textured thing off of minimal input from the source material. So what I'm saying is he magnified the source material beyond the source material.
Right.
I say that having read Oil, so forgive me, but based on the Cliff Notes, I'm pretty safe in my assumptions here. He transcended what was given to him, elevated it to something way more meaningful, way deeper and bigger and larger. And that's a tough thing to do. That's a real tough thing to do, is to grab themes and stuff. Mm-hmm. As a writer, I personally am driven by theme writing, not so much plot structure, but more like what is my movie about? Not from a plot point of view, but like from a thematic point of view. And so for him to take something that's plot, grab a theme, and create a whole story out of it is just amazing. And so it's high on my film list, and it's high on that list as a screenplay because of the ability to transcend and elevate something.
Right. Well, I mean, he gave weight to dramatic moments in a way that was certainly not always done. So, yeah, that's one aspect that I love about it.